Okay, let's dive into this. Welcome to today's Explainer. We're looking at the hilarious, deeply frustrating, and honestly, absolutely fascinating clash between what game developers intend to build and what we players actually do with it. Today, we are counting down the definitive top 10 ways gamers ruin video games. You know the old saying, right? Every great game starts as a carefully built castle. And then the players arrive. We don't just politely walk through the front door. No way. We bring ladders, flamethrowers, and perhaps most terrifyingly of all, spreadsheets. It's wild, but players have this genuinely alarming willingness to optimize absolutely every single ounce of joy right out of an experience. So let's start at level 1, breaking game mechanics. Kicking off our list at number 10, it's the absolute oldest trick in the book. Camping every spawn point. I mean, we've all been there, right? In countless FPS titles, absolutely nothing kills the adrenaline rush of respawning, quite like taking exactly 2 steps and immediately becoming target practice. Early on, players realized that just standing right outside enemy spawn zones guaranteed totally easy kills. It basically turned high-octane shooters into a lazy shooting gallery. It got so bad that developers literally spent decades inventing spawn protection, random spawn systems, and invisible walls, all just to stop that one guy who says, "Hey, what if I just never leave this corner?" Moving right along to number 9, the Great Bunny Hop Epidemic. Think back to classic genre-defining games like Counter-Strike and Quake. Some incredibly clever players figured out that jumping repeatedly while moving actually preserved your momentum. They took a totally simple physics quirk and turned it into a massive exploit. It didn't just make you incredibly fast, it made you practically impossible to hit. And this brilliantly illustrates the massive disconnect here. The developer's intention? A gritty, highly tactical shootout between elite military soldiers. The actual player reality? Caffeinated kangaroos tap dancing at Mach speed through industrial warehouses. What started as a minor physics quirk became a full-blown, high-speed dance routine. It left developers everywhere completely scratching their heads, wondering, do we fix this? Or do we just pretend we meant to do that? Dropping in at number 8, min-maxing the fun away. Now we see this mostly in sprawling RPGs and MMOs. Picture this, a brand new, massive game launches. You'd think players would just organically explore and take in the sights, right? Nope. They spend about 6 minutes actually enjoying themselves before the game is just solved. Welcome to the era of min-maxing. Almost instantly, someone drops a 47-page guide titled, "The Only Correct Build, Everything Else is Garbage." And just like that, players are transformed into what the community calls meta slaves. Every single character ends up looking identical, weapons are ranked by tiny, microscopic decimal points, and any real sense of organic experimentation totally buried beneath mountains of spreadsheets. This behavior forces developers into this never-ending, exhausting cycle of balance patches just to push people into trying something new. Moving up to level 2, community chaos. At number 7, the toxicity really scales up with review bombing everything. Pretty much all modern releases have to deal with this now. Did the game drop a controversial update? Review bomb. Day 1 server issues? Review bomb. Did the developer literally just change a loading screen? Yeah, believe it or not, review bomb. Look, player feedback is undeniably valuable, but these highly coordinated campaigns bury legitimate criticism under thousands of zeros that have absolutely nothing to do with the actual gameplay. It makes user scores basically impossible to interpret if you're just a normal person trying to figure out if a game is actually fun. Coming in at number 6, the noob culture explosion. Look, competitive gaming has birthed some truly incredible, long-lasting communities, but it's also created some spectacularly toxic ones. Instead of teaching new players the ropes, a lot of veterans adopt the simplest, most brutal strategy possible when they see a beginner. They just type one word: uninstall. It's like beginners wander into this intense gladiator arena armed with basically a pool noodle, and instead of getting a little help, they just get mocked right out of the lobby. Honestly, nothing shrinks a multiplayer community faster than this massive culture shock. It's gotten so extreme that developers are now practically forced to build massive tutorials, really strict mute buttons, and complex reporting systems purely to protect newcomers from the veteran players. All right, escalating things to level 3, bending the rules. Hitting number 5, speedrunning destroying intended routes. Okay, developers spend years, literally years, carefully scripting these epic, deeply emotional adventures. And then, players discover that if you jump backward, clip through a solid rock wall, balance precisely on a fence post, and open your inventory exactly 7 times, boom, You can bypass the whole thing and finish a 60-hour game in 12 minutes. The mindset shift here is just amazing to me. A normal player looks at the horizon and asks, what's over that mountain? But a speedrunner asks, can I launch my character model entirely over the mountain to skip half the game? While speedrunning is absolutely a display of incredible, almost superhuman skill, it has completely changed how a lot of us view games. We literally have entire massive communities devoted to breaking absolute masterpieces in the most entertaining ways imaginable. Down to number 4, cheaters versus everyone else. We are talking wall hacks, aimbots, infinite money glitches, flying cars, you name it. Every single online game eventually becomes this brutal, exhausting arms race between the developers and people trying to maliciously exploit the code. So, the crucial point is, aimbots and similar cheats are essentially software designed for people who wake up thinking, hey, how can I ruin Tuesday for 63 strangers? Because of this stuff, legitimate players are constantly second-guessing themselves. You know that feeling. Did I lose that match fairly, or did that guy have a program running? This paranoia has forced developers to build anti-cheat systems that are, no joke, sometimes as deeply complicated as the video games themselves. Which brings us to level 4, systemic threats. Breaking into the top 3, we have the microtransaction whale economy. And the painful irony here is that players kind of built this monster themselves. When publishers noticed that a tiny percentage of players, often called whales, were willing to spend literally thousands of real-world dollars on cosmetic items, card packs, and loot boxes, well, they caught on incredibly fast. The whole industry shifted away from the traditional pay-once, play-forever model, moving straight toward endless monetization simply because enough people just kept opening their wallets. And of course, that sparked the endless, highly debated defense, hey man, it's just cosmetic. Landing at number 2 is leaking every secret before launch. Remember the good old days when you discover a hidden character completely by accident? Yeah, those days are practically gone. Today, data miners and leakers expose DLC roadmaps, secret endings, and literally every collectible location before a game even officially releases. Release week turns into this absolute laser grid of spoilers that players have to aggressively dodge on social media. It leaves developers totally scrambling and completely ruins the surprise for everyone who actually values discovering things on their own. Okay, before we hit the number 1 spot, let's rapid fire through a few chaotic honorable mentions that also drive us totally crazy. Ready? Stream sniping to maliciously hunt down content creators. Account boosting, where people actually pay real money to artificially rank up. The ever-present, always exhausting voice chat toxicity. Scalping limited edition consoles. Dropping your beautiful game down to potato graphics just so you can spot enemies hiding in bushes. And of course, hoarding MMO resources to completely crash virtual economies. I mean, it is an absolute Wild West out there. And now, the final boss. Optimizing fun away. Taking the number 1 spot on our list, optimizing the mystery out of games. Now, what's really interesting about this slide is the poetic irony of it all. As a community, players became so incredibly good at solving games that we sometimes literally solved the sense of wonder right out of them. Just look at this grim optimization timeline. Step 1, the game launches and full wikis appear within hours. Step 2, by the very next day, every single quest has a meticulous step-by-step guide. Step 3, within a week, 1 week, the community has generated massive tier lists, hyper-efficient farming routes, and DPS simulators. Instead of wandering out into the great unknown, millions of players now march through these lush, beautifully crafted magical worlds, treating them like carefully managed chores on a second monitor. Which leads us to this final thought. You know, sometimes the absolute greatest enemy a video game will ever face isn't a fire-breathing dragon, or an alien invasion, or an evil empire. It's a million extremely clever players asking, what happens if we all do the weirdest possible thing? Are players actually the true final boss of every game? Next time you boot up a brand new title and immediately look up a guide on your phone, you might want to ask yourself that very question. Thanks so much for learning with me today, and I'll see you in the next explainer.